Welcome back to the Body for Minds podcast. Recently, I had quite a bit of paperwork to file, and one of the documents I needed was my CV. Going through my resume brought back a lot of memories, some nostalgia, some laughter, and quite a bit of reflection about the different roles I've held over the years across different industries, organizations, and countries. And while there were plenty of differences, of course, one thing stood out as remarkably consistent. The phrase, "We'll do it when it's quieter." You may have heard that one too. When you're new to an industry, a company, or even just a role, you tend to ask a lot of questions. Questions about why things are done a certain way, whether processes could be improved, or whether there might be a better approach altogether. And more often than not, the answer was some version of, yes, that's a good idea. We'll look at it when things are quieter. The only problem? The quieter time never came. Sometimes people would point to summer, but then summer arrived and half the team was on holiday while everyone else was covering for them. Or someone would say January used to be quieter, used to being the important part of the sentence. Because when January arrived, there were new priorities, new projects, new deadlines, and somehow the thing that was supposedly important enough to revisit later got pushed again. And again. And again. Eventually, nobody even mentioned it anymore. Until one day it became urgent. The process that it needed improving now caused problems. The team issue that should have been addressed now affected performance. The system that needed updating finally broke. And suddenly the thing that could have been tackled months earlier became a crisis. It collided with reporting deadlines, sales targets, major projects, or important events. Why? Because instead of being prioritized, it quietly created a timeline of its own. And while I was reflecting on this recently, I realized something. As mothers, we often do exactly the same thing. Not because we don't care about ourselves, not because we don't know what matters, but because we keep waiting for a quieter season. We tell ourselves, when summer comes, things will slow down. When school starts again, I'll finally have a chance to think. When the kids are older, I'll do it. When this project finishes, I'll sit down and look at what I actually want. When things settle down, I'll figure out my next steps. Only then summer arrives and every week looks different because camp schedules change. School starts and suddenly there are activities, playdates, school events, and new routines to coordinate. The project at work finishes and before you've even closed it out, the next one has landed on your desk. Life keeps moving. The quieter season never quite arrives. And from the outside, it can look like everything is working. The kids are cared for, the work gets done, the appointments are booked, the calendar is full, life is moving forward. But inside, there can be a growing sense that you haven't checked in with yourself in months or years. Not because you've lost the ability, not because you've suddenly become incapable of reflecting or making decisions, but because all of your attention has been directed outward, toward what needs doing next, toward what everyone else needs, toward what feels most urgent. And over time, something important happens. You stop deciding what matters. You start reacting to what arrives. Things begin to dictate your priorities rather than your priorities guiding your decisions. And that often creates the feeling so many mothers describe as feeling disconnected, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you're somehow living your life while simultaneously being absent from it. So let's bring these two examples back together. The question organizations often ask is, when will we do this? But perhaps the better question is, what will it cost us later if we don't do it now? Because there's always a cost. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's operational, maybe it's relational or cultural, but there's a cost. And the same applies to us as mothers. What will it cost me if I keep postponing this conversation? What will it cost me if I keep ignoring what matters to me? What will it cost me if I continue pushing through without ever stepping back? Or what will it cost me if tired becomes the only feeling I know how to recognize and express? Now, that doesn't mean everything needs to happen immediately. It doesn't mean dropping responsibilities or creating a whole new life overnight. It simply means becoming intentional, looking honestly at what matters, and at what is non-negotiable, at what supports you, and at what you've simply continued carrying because that's how things evolved. If I were asking myself these questions, they might sound like this. What is important to me and my family right now? What genuinely needs my attention? What energizes me? What is simply a nice to have? How well are our routines actually working? Are they still supporting us, or have they just become habits? How can I create some breathing room for myself? How can my partner and I create space for us as a couple? How can I connect intentionally with each of my children? You might be listening and thinking, that sounds lovely, but I genuinely don't have time for that right now. And I understand that reaction. Because when you're carrying work, children, mental load, household logistics, and everyone else's needs, time can feel incredibly scarce. But what I've learned is this. We rarely find time. We create it, usually in very small ways at first. A conversation, a walk, maybe a podcast episode, 10 quiet minutes with a notebook, an honest question, a moment of reflection. And before you can decide what matters, you often need enough space to hear yourself again. That's why so often I come back to the body, not because a walk solves all your problems, not because a workout magically creates clarity, but because reconnecting with your body interrupts that constant outward focus. It gives you a moment to notice, what am I carrying right now? What feels heavy? What feels energizing? What do I need? Maybe that's a workout. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's breath work or a meditation. Or maybe it's simply pausing for a moment and asking yourself one small question. Because every small answer helps build the bigger picture. Every moment of awareness helps you reconnect with yourself. And over time, those moments create clarity, not all at once, but bit by bit. So don't wait for the quietest season. Professionally, it rarely arrives. Personally, it doesn't arrive either. Life has a way of filling every bit of available space. The question isn't, when will things calm down enough for me to pay attention to what matters? The question is, what matters enough that I make space for it now? Because the longer we postpone what truly matters, the more likely it is that life will eventually force our attention there anyway, and often at a much higher cost. So take the walk, ask the question, have the conversation, review the priorities, not because everything is falling apart, but because you matter before things fall apart. The quieter season doesn't arrive on its own. You create it. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take good care of yourself. More you, less noise.